Happy Halloween, everyone. What I thought I would do for this holiday here is kind of do a twofer, partly based on some stuff that I had on my mind to begin with for a while now that I'll talk about at the end of this video, and partly after hearing part of Deadpoolzilla's top 10 vampire movie list. What I think I'll start off with is the top 10, my top 10 vampire deal, and then I'll go into my top 3 scariest deals, scariest moments in checking out fiction in general. But anyway, on to the vampires. My number 10 vampire movie has to be like one of the movies that had to kind of set the whole blaxploitation thing up as a genre, and I'm talking about, of course, none other than Blackula. One could argue that it's one of those movies that's so bad that it's good. Just hearing things about Dracula and his coming into existence and his life story, and then you marry it up with this almost live cartoon of what Blackula is. Now, of course, anybody that's followed Dracula knows that, spelled backwards, his name is Alucard. Of course, Blackula, while technically his name spelled backwards is Alucard, that's not something that's drawn into his history. Hollywood decided to go the route of having Dracula basically turn this guy into a vampire and deeming him Blackula, which has got to be one of the stupidest things that I've seen in film. But nonetheless, it's kind of one of those guilty pleasure type deals. So basically, that's what sets up my number 10. Number 9 is the sequel to Underworld. I didn't find this movie to be particularly memorable. The only thing that it really has going for it, if you'll pardon my blatant hetero-ness, is Kate Beckinsale. Seeing her basically in form-fitting rubber is pretty much worth the price of admission right there. And then if you can work a story around it, that's all the better. My number 8 is Bordello of Blood. That was with Angie Everhart, Dennis Miller, and Erica Liniak. And once again, a recurring theme you'll hear me talk about from here and there is going to be how things of a sensual nature tend to always seem to pepper a lot of vampire movies, especially if you go from the 1970s and beyond, maybe a little bit into the late 60s. The whole sensuality thing seems like it just follows vampire lore heavily, which is one of the things that drew me into it, because I never really got into the whole Nosferatu and Bela Lugosi stuff and all that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, though. My number 7. Let's see, Black Joker, but yeah, my number 7 is Blade. I believe that was Marvel's first major hit into the movie foray, and Wesley Snipes really put whatever it is he does within his acting chops to make this character basically breathe. you know, and his being a day walker and all that, you know, along with a good performance, co-performance with Chris Christopherson. Not to mention the 2 sequels that were spawned from Blade. You know, gotta give Blade its props. At number 6 is Dracula. Again, I'm not talking about Bela Lugosi or Jack Palance or Christopher Lee, but I'm talking about Gary Oldman. His Dracula to me was the most intense that I've seen Dracula portrayed. And while monster movies per se don't scare me, Dracula came close, and that's due no less to the weight that Gary Oldman gave the character and the way he played the character. Just some very, very unsettling scenes. Just seeing him with the razor blade was unnerving. Not to mention what happened with a baby, with an infant. But yeah, Dracula has to be basically my number 6. My number 5 technically was not a theatrical release. It was really made for TV. But it's probably the one movie that's vampire related that even unnerved me maybe a little bit more than Dracula did, even though it didn't have the budget that Dracula did. And that's Salem's Lot. I think one of the creepiest things in Salem's Lot was when you saw this vampire kind of floating outside this kid's window and whatnot, and the vampire would kind of taunt him, but he wouldn't come in because, of course, because of vampire lore, the vampire has to be invited in. But Salem's Lot was definitely a top-notch, I don't know, movie slash miniseries. At number 4 was for me, the original Underworld, and just hearing Kate Beckinsale with the opening, trailer, basically say, "I'm a death dealer." I knew I was going to see that movie, and it was just flat out kick-ass, and remains one of my favorite movies. Not just vampire movies, but one of my favorite movies in general. So yeah, that's my number 4. My number 3 is The Lost Boys. Now with The Lost Boys, this is back when I thought that Jamie Gertz was really, really cute. She's not hard on the eyes now, but when she was in that movie, you would hardly think that she was a vampire, because she never played up on it, although she was with all the vampire kids, well, vampire teens anyway, and everybody played their role well, especially Kiefer Sutherland. I think one of the scenes that just sticks out in my mind is that you had this one guy who wasn't a vampire. He may or may not have been bitten, but he was very sweet on Jamie Gertz's character, and somehow all these folks met up at this drive-in or something, and were having Chinese food, and I remember Kiefer Sutherland said to the guy who was smitten with Jamie Gertz, said, "How's your maggots?" And the guy was like, looked at him kind of puzzled, and was like, "What are you talking about?" He says, you know, your maggots. And then of course he goes to look at his carton of rice, and sure enough, it was maggots in there. and Jamie Gertz was like telling Kiefer, to go ahead and cut it out, and it was like a mind control type trick. It was always rice, but he made him think it was maggots. So I don't know. That's just one of those scenes that just stuck with me for like forever. My number 2 pick is Interview with the Vampire, and I think Interview with the Vampire was the movie that made me take Tom Cruise seriously as an actor. His portrayal of Lestat, I remember even before I left the theater thinking, man, I would love to see a sequel with him in it. Things happened to him that kind of would make a sequel unlikely. They probably have to do a prequel, but his role as Lestat totally changed my view on Tom Cruise. And then you had Kirsten Dunst in a role where she could actually act, unlike what she was doing in Spider-Man. But her role was just so creepy, because here she was, I don't know, she might have been like 30, her character, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, whatever, but she was bitten as a kid, so a kid she'd remain. And just that concept to me was creepy enough. And my number 1 pick is Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn. Man, I love that movie. From Dusk Till Dawn, to me, has in the whole vampire deal altogether, has no equal, and it has no close second. The roles by George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino and Juliette Lewis and Harvey Keitel were just spot on. They were beyond spot on. And I remember when I went to go see this film, the thing that for me made it stand out is you were like 45 minutes into the movie and you were wondering whether you were actually in the right movie, because it's nearly an hour before you clearly see the first vampire, and it really looked like a crime movie, almost Bonnie and Clyde-ish, for at least the first third, or a little bit better than the first third. And when it really started kicking into high gear, though, it's definitely one of those movies I would put the term masterpiece to describe it, But anyway, that comprises my my top 10 list for vampire movies. Now my top 3 scariest bits of, I guess you would say, cinema or cinema related, non-vampire related though, would be, I'll do letters instead of numbers. At C would be Event Horizon. Now that's really technically a science fiction movie, but that movie scared the bejesus out of me like no other, because I don't typically go see horror films. For me, gore films aren't horror films. Slasher films are not horror films. Suspense films are not horror films. And monster films are not horror films. Any of them can have horror in it, but I tend not to think of those films as horror films. Horror films for me are usually films dealing with possession, and possession is something I can't deal with. To this day, I have never seen The Exorcist, nor will I ever willingly go see The Exorcist. But anyway, yeah, Event Horizon is like one of my scariest deals in terms of cinema. Going even further than that, however, was a movie I saw in the mid '70s. It was called Legend of Hell House, and I saw it at a drive-in. It was a family outing, and I had gone to see. Well, my father had gone to see, I think it was either 100 Rifles or Through the Hard Way, whichever had Fred Williamson, Jim Kelly, and either Raquel Welch or Anne Margaret. And it wasn't a scary Western, so that was all right. But then my father was insistent upon checking out the second feature. I saw the name of it. I was like, "No, can we go? Can we go?" And he told me I needed to shut the hell up and watch that film. He spent money for that double feature. He's sure he wasn't gonna jet up and leave without seeing it. So when I look at it by today's standards, it was pretty a pretty hackneyed film. But as a kid, you start hearing people talking tongues and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh man. So that happened to be one of the things. Excuse me. One of the my second biggest fear in terms of cinema goes. Now my first biggest fear probably is going to sound the silliest, because it's a film that I've never seen. The thing that scared me was the trailer on TV, mind you, the trailer for the movie Suspiria. And the thing that I remember about it, and what I would caution anybody else against, if they can help it, is don't fall asleep watching TV if the last thing you see is a horror trailer. Because that messed with my head for so long it wasn't even funny. For those of you who don't remember Suspiria or don't remember the trailer, basically you had this lady singing like a nursery rhyme type song while she was brushing her hair, and then when she gets to the last part of the song, as she turns around, from the back of her head you imagine there's a beautiful woman, but when she turns around it's actually a skeleton face. And that's what I fell asleep on. I'm like, I can't even remember what the nightmare was like. But anyway, that comprises my whole Halloween special, if you want to consider it that. And until next time, once again, happy Halloween to everyone, and night out.